The floors in the Ashford estate gleamed like they'd been polished by ghosts. Not a single speck of dust dared settle on the marble tiles, and the crystal chandeliers above refracted light into sharp prisms, casting slashes of color across the walls like weapons disguised as rainbows. Every inch of the mansion whispered power, quiet, cold, and absolute. Haley Carter moved through the corridors with the silent precision of someone who had learned long ago that invisibility was safer than presence. Her uniform was spotless, her movements practiced. She cleaned the office without making a sound, dusted the library without disturbing a single spine, and changed the bedsheets with the efficiency of someone whose job had no room for error or personality. She didn't expect anyone to notice her. That was the point. In another life, Haley might have been a teacher or a graphic designer, something with color and creativity. But reality had never been polite to her. After her mother died from an aggressive form of leukemia, the hospital bills buried Haley and her younger sister Jade in over $60,000 of medical debt. Their father had walked out when they were teenagers. There was no safety net. No miracle. Juste the grain. She worked 6 days a week in one of the wealthiest households in Chicago. The Ashfords owned companies with names on the tops of buildings, donated millions to political campaigns, and whispers said, had their hands deep in the city's underworld. But Haley didn't care about that. She cared about keeping her head down, getting paid, and making sure Jade, who worked as a kitchen assistant in the same estate, could one day go to culinary school. "You're too smart for this job," Jade told her once, flipping eggs over a cast iron pan while Haley stitched a hole in her sneaker. "You should be somewhere else. Anywhere else. And starve." Haley had replied, "No thanks. You dream for both of us." So she cleaned. She folded. She faded into the background. And for 8 months, no one at the estate really looked at her, not even him. Caleb Ashford. She had seen him in glimpses, walking down the hall trailed by men in suits, or standing at the far end of the dining room during events she wasn't allowed to attend. Tall. Composed. Always in dark, tailored clothes. He carried the kind of authority that didn't raise its voice. It didn't need to. Rumors said he took over the Ashford family business after his older brother died suddenly, and that under his leadership, things became sharper, smarter, more ruthless. But he had never spoken to Haley. Until the rein. It started like any other Wednesday. Overcast sky. Quiet house. Haley clocked out late, after covering for a sick coworker, and the buses were already running on their night schedule. She didn't have money for a rideshare. So she walked to the Red Line station, pulling her coat tight around her shoulders. The rain came fast, sharp and cold. She ducked into an alley she usually avoided, hoping to cut 2 blocks off her route. It was empty. Until it wasn't. 2 men stepped out from behind a dumpster. Both wore hoodies, but it wasn't the clothes that frightened her. It was the confidence. The certainty. Like they'd been waiting for her. "Hey," one of them said. "You work for Ashford, don't you?" Haley froze. Her uniform betrayed her, the navy blue jacket with the estate's embroidered crest over the chest. "I don't want any trouble," she said quickly, backing up. "That's the thing," the other man replied. "Trouble's already here." She turned to run, but they grabbed her, one pinning her arms, the other tearing the bag from her shoulder. Her phone clattered to the wet concrete. "Tell your boss," one hissed into her ear as the first punch landed in her stomach, "he doesn't run this side of the city anymore." The second blow hit her jaw. Then another. The world spun. Rein blurred everything. She went down hard, scraping her palms, gasping for air. And just as quickly as it started, they were gone, vanishing into the shadows like they were never there. Haley lay on the ground for what felt like forever, the cold seeping into her bones. Early bled. Ribescht. But more than anything, she felt small. Like the world had shrunk her down and stepped on what remained. She picked herself up. There was no one to call. She didn't have insurance. Didn't have time off. Didn't want to worry Jade. So she cleaned herself up as best she could, limped to the train, and made it home by midnight. When Jade asked about the bruises, Haley lied. "Slipped on wet tiles," she said, managing a smile through the pain. "I'll be fine." The next morning, she went back to work. Everything hurt. Her lip was split. Her cheekbone was tender. She dabbed on concealer, tied her hair back, and told herself, you just need to make it through the day. But that was the day everything changed. She was wiping down the long conference table in the main office when the door opened without warning. She looked up. It was him. Caleb Ashford stood in the doorway, phone in hand, speaking to someone in a tone that was low and clipped. Move the shipment to Tuesday. I don't care what they say, he said, then paused, eyes landing on her.
I'll call you back.
Click.
Silence.
Hayley straightened, heart pounding. Sir, I didn't mean to. What happened to your face? He asked, stepping closer. She blinked. Nothing. I'm fine.
That is not nothing.
His gaze sharpened. Who did this to you? She opened her mouth, closed it. She had never been alone with him before. Never expected his voice to be so quiet. So dangerous. It was just, she looked away.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Where? He asked. It's not. Where? His tone left no room for negotiation. So she told him.
À qui aller?
2 men. A warning. The silence that followed was colder than the rain had been. You're one of mine, he said finally, voice soft but lethal. And someone thought they could use you to get to me. She didn't know what to say to that. One of mine? Caleb stepped past her, pulled out his phone, and dialed.
Lucas. Get eyes on South Side.
Pull footage. I want the bastards who touched my cleaner on their knees by tonight. Hayley's legs felt like they might give out.
She wasn't invisible anymore.
And that terrified her more than anything else. For the next 3 hours, Hayley felt like she was drifting through someone else's life. After Caleb Ashford made that call, she had been quietly escorted to the staff medical wing, a place she'd only heard of but never seen. It wasn't just a room. It was a private clinic, tucked behind the wine cellar, run by a woman named Dr. Ellen Pike who had all the bedside warmth of a hurricane but the efficiency of a scalpel. The cuts on Hayley's hands were disinfected. Her split lip was stitched. The bruises on her ribs, examined, x-rayed, and wrapped. No questions about insurance.
No form to fill out.
Just treatment.
Fast.
Silent. Professional. Dr. Pike didn't speak until she was nearly done. He doesn't send people here, she said, tightening the bandage around Hayley's ribs. Whatever this is, you've landed on his radar. Hayley didn't know how to respond. She didn't want to be on anyone's radar, especially not Caleb Ashford's.
Not like this.
When she returned to her room that night, one of the staff dorms in the East Wing, Jade was pacing the floor like a storm cloud in human form. Oh my God, Jade breathed when she saw her. You should have told me.
You look Jésus, elle.
I didn't want you to worry, Hayley said quietly, shrugging off her coat.
Jade's voice cracked. You worry because I love you.
That's not something you get to manage. Hayley collapsed into her bed, exhausted beyond anything painkillers could dull. I'm sorry. There was silence for a moment, then the soft rustle of Jade sitting beside her. I heard rumors, Jade said slowly, about what Mr. Ashford did today. Someone said 2 guys were dragged off the street. South Side Muscle. No one's seen them since. Hayley closed her eyes. She wanted to pretend she didn't hear that. Pretend this wasn't spiraling into something she couldn't control. But deep down, something inside her shifted. Not fear exactly, though that was there too, but something colder. Recognition. This was what power looked like when it was personal. By the next morning, word had spread through the estate like wildfire wrapped in velvet. Staff members who had never acknowledged Hayley before suddenly looked at her like she was radioactive. Some kept their distance. Others offered soft nods or awkward smiles, the kind reserved for people who had been too close to a lightning strike and somehow survived. Hayley returned to work, trying to pretend everything was normal. It wasn't. Halfway through her shift, Lucas, the man Caleb had called the day before, approached her near the grand staircase. He was tall, broad, with a kind of calm demeanor that made you feel like he'd been through far worse than he let on. Mr. Ashford wants to see you, he said. Hayley stiffened. Did I do something wrong? Lucas raised an eyebrow. Not yet. She followed him through a series of hallways she had never been down before. Unlike the rest of the house, these weren't designed to impress. They were functional, lined with security doors and dim lighting. It felt like walking into the spine of the estate. Finally, they reached a wide door that Lucas opened without knocking. Inside, Caleb sat at a large table, scrolling through surveillance footage on a screen. He didn't look up right away. Haley hesitated at the threshold, unsure whether to enter. Then Caleb spoke.
Close the door, Lucas.
Lucas obeyed, and the lock clicked shut behind her. Now it was just the two of them. I want you to see this, Caleb said, gesturing to the screen. Haley stepped forward cautiously. The footage showed her, blurry but unmistakable, walking through the alley. Two figures appeared, confronted her. There was no sound, but the violence was visible even in grainy black and white. Caleb paused the video. That was 10 minutes before your train, he said. The men are Darren Cole and Victor Shaw.
Small-time muscle fort the Holocross.
Sloppy but loyal. Haley's mouth was dry. Why are you showing me this? Because I need you to understand something, Caleb said, turning to her fully now. They didn't come after you because they knew who you were. They came after you because of me. Her stomach twisted. I know that, she said quietly. That's why I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to start something. It already started the moment they put hands on you, Caleb said coldly. You're part of this house.
You work under my name.
That means something. It has to. His words were sharp but not cruel. In them, she heard not just anger, but a code.
Acrid.
She looked at him for a long moment. You barely knew I existed 2 days ago, she said finally. I noticed you, he replied. You were just very good at not being noticed. She didn't know what to do with that. Before she could respond, the door opened again. Lucas reappeared. They're here, he said. Caleb nodded. Bring them in. Haley took a step back instinctively as two men were led into the room, hands zip-tied, eyes swollen, clothes damp with sweat. She recognized them immediately. The alley. The fists. They looked smaller now. Human. Afraid. Miss Carter, Caleb said, turning to her, do you want to leave the room? She hesitated. Then shook her head. No, she said. I want to see. Caleb studied her, then turned back to the two men. This is Haley Carter, he said.
You pure en heure.
You threatened her. You thought she was just some cleaner with no name and no one to protect her. Neither man spoke. Their fear filled the room like smoke. I want you to look at her, Caleb said. Look at what you did. They did. One winced. Haley didn't flinch. Caleb's voice dropped to a whisper.
You sent un message.
Here's mine. He turned to Lucas. Handle it. Lucas nodded once and led the men out of the room. Haley didn't ask what handle it meant. She didn't need to. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Caleb said, I'm not sorry. She turned to him. I know, she said. He stepped closer. You didn't ask for any of this.
And yet here you are.
Yeah, Haley said, heart pounding. Here I am. And suddenly, she wasn't just invisible anymore. She was standing in the eye of a storm. Haley didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, every muscle in her body aching, but her thoughts sharper than they'd ever been. The image of Darren and Victor, bound and bloodied, haunted her. The look in Caleb's eyes, calm, cold, definitive, scared her in a way she couldn't name. He had done it for her. And that was the problem. Jay didn't press for details, only asked if Haley was okay, then left it alone when she didn't answer. Haley appreciated the silence. There were too many things she didn't understand yet. Too many lines she wasn't sure had already been crossed. By morning, the estate had returned to its usual, eerie rhythm. Staff moved through the halls like clockwork, avoiding eye contact, conversations clipped. But Haley could feel it, something had shifted.
Not just in the house.
In her.
She wasn't invisible anymore.
Later that afternoon, she found herself called back to the same hallway as before. Lucas met her at the foot of the stairs, gave a small nod, and gestured without a word. She followed. This time, Caleb was in a different room, his private study, surrounded by shelves of leather-bound books, soft lighting, and windows that looked out over the garden. He stood behind a wide desk, sorting through paperwork, but looked up as she entered. You're bruising less, he said. Haley crossed her arms. Is that your way of asking how I'm doing? A corner of his mouth tugged upward, just a fraction. Yes. She didn't sit. Why am I here? Caleb gestured to a small silver tray on the desk. On it was a steaming cup of coffee. I wanted to offer you something, he said. She blinked. Coffee. Not just any coffee, he said. I asked one of the staff.
You drink it black.
No sugar. No cream. Always finish it before it cools. She stared at him. You notice that? I notice a lot of things, he said, voice even. Especially now. Haley walked slowly to the tray, picked up the cup, and held it between her palms. It was warm. Comforting.
Réal.
Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. What exactly am I doing? This, she said, motioning around the room.
The medical care.
The revenge. The coffee. You barely knew who I was a week ago. I knew who you were, he replied. I just didn't know what you meant to me yet. The words landed with a weight that made her stomach twist. You don't mean that, she said. You're just reacting. I was attacked. You're used to fixing things by force. That's true, Caleb admitted. But this isn't just a reaction. You work in my house.
You're under my protection.
I didn't ask for protection. No, he said, stepping around the desk. But you needed it. Haley took a step back. This isn't protection.
This is control.
Caleb paused. Is that how you see it? I see what happened to those two men. I see the way people look at me now.
Like I'm your.
And you're not. She froze. The silence stretched between them like a wire drawn tight. I belong to no one, she said finally, her voice shaking. Not even you. Caleb didn't look offended. If anything, he looked intrigued. I respect that, he said. More than you think. He turned, walked to a cabinet, and pulled out a thin folder. Placing it on the desk, he opened it to reveal a contract. What's that? She asked warily. A promotion, he said.
En official one.
I want you to come work for me directly. Not just as house staff.
À my executive assistant.
Double your current salary. Full medical. Your own car. A new apartment. Haley stared at him.
You want me closer point.
Yes. Why? He held her gaze.
Because he trusts you. Because he needs someone who sees the world the way you do.
And because, if I'm going to build something better, I need people beside me who aren't afraid to challenge me. Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected that. Not the offer. Not the words. I need to think, she whispered. Caleb nodded once. Of course. She left the study without taking the contract. For the next few days, she didn't see him. But she saw his influence everywhere. Her bank account reflected a mysterious deposit, enough to cover a small portion of the debt. Jade's schedule was adjusted so they could commute together. A brand new security badge appeared on Haley's nightstand, marked with higher clearance. He was giving her freedom disguised as power. And it terrified her. Then, late one night, she found him in the garden. He stood beneath the arch of ivy, smoking something slender, face lit only by the glow of the estate behind him. I didn't know you smoked, she said. I don't, he replied, flicking the cigarette away. Just needed the excuse to stand out here and breathe. Haley joined him, arms crossed against the cold. I read the contract, she said. And I'm not sure yet. Caleb nodded. What would make you sure? She looked at him. Really looked.
You say you want me close.
But I don't know who you are when I'm not looking. Caleb's face didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, softer, heavier. I'm someone who's done terrible things, he said. And someone trying not to repeat them. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. But it's the truth.
Elle exhaled, watching the fog of her breath vanish into the night.
You scare me, she said. I scare everyone. I don't want to be scared. He turned to her then, voice low. Then don't be. Be angry. Be smart. Be careful. But don't be scared of me. Not you. She didn't reply. And yet, for the first time, she didn't walk away. Not yet. 3 weeks passed. Haley didn't accept the contract, but she didn't reject it either. She continued her work at the estate, though she was now given tasks that hinted at a gradual shift in status, organizing Caleb's daily schedule, handling logistics for deliveries, coordinating private meetings. Jade teased her about it in the evenings, calling her the Mafia's new secretary, though always with a smile that hid worry. Haley still felt unsure of her place, suspended between two lives. Too close to Caleb to pretend she was just another employee. Too distant to feel safe in what he might actually feel, or expect. But things had calmed, or so it seemed. Until Jade didn't come home one night. Haley waited past midnight, pacing the kitchen of their small apartment on the edge of River North. She texted. Called. No answer. Jade never missed curfew. She always checked in. Always. At 2:04 a.m., Haley received a single message.
Don't call anyone.
Just wait. No signature. No context.
LAS bodylocked in panic.
She grabbed her coat and left the apartment, heading straight to the Ashford estate. She knew it was irrational. Caleb wasn't a cop, this wasn't the system, but she also knew he was the only one who could do something. The only one who could make the world move when it refused to. Lucas met her at the front gate, eyes alert. She's gone, Haley said before he could speak. My sister. She didn't come home. I got a message from an unknown number. I think someone took her.
Lucas face darkened.
We've had chatter.
Something is moving tonight.
Get inside. Haley followed him in, pulse pounding, dread growing with every step. They entered the underground operations room, a high-security floor beneath the estate she'd only seen once before. Caleb was already there, in a black sweater, sleeves rolled up, hair damp like he'd been pulled from sleep and thrown into fire. She's gone? He asked without turning. Haley nodded, chest tight. They took her. Someone took her. Caleb exhaled once through his nose.
Tell me everything.
She did. Quickly, precisely. The text.
The missing hours. Jade's routine.
Caleb didn't ask useless questions. He simply turned to Lucas. Find the phone's origin.
Cross-reference surveillance from the estate's delivery record.
I want every kitchen vendor checked. No one touches this house without being vetted again. Lucas moved immediately.
Elle leaned against the cold metal wall, trembling.
I don't understand, she whispered. Why would they take her? She's not involved. She's your sister, Caleb said quietly.
C'était enough.
Something deeper passed between them. Fear, anger, guilt, unspoken but shared. An hour passed. Then Lucas returned, face grim. We have a problem. Caleb's jaw tightened. What kind?
Lucas hesitated.
There was a trace left in the internal logs. Someone used your clearance code. Caleb's eyes narrowed. Mine.
Lucas shook his head slowly.
No. Hers. He turned to Haley.
Elle blinked, confused.
That's not possible. I've never used the internal system. I don't even know how.
Lucas stepped closer, voice low.
Someone copied your badge signal. Cloned it. It was used to escort Jade out of the service gate at 9:32 p.m. Escorted by who? Caleb asked.
Lucas hesitated.
Say it, Caleb ordered.
Lucas glanced at Elle.
Then back to Caleb. It was me. The silence that followed was deafening. Haley felt the ground tilt. You? She whispered. You took my sister? Lucas's expression remained unreadable. I didn't hurt her. I made sure of that. She's safe. Caleb stepped forward, every muscle in his body tensed. Where is she? Lucas met his gaze.
Somewhere you control. Somewhere you don't.
Haley felt nausea crawl up her throat. Why would you do this? Lucas looked at her then, and his voice lost all pretense. Because you've become a liability. To him. To everything we built. Caleb's voice dropped into ice.
You were my brother.
And you were supposed to be untouchable, Lucas snapped. You were supposed to be smarter than this. But she, he pointed at Haley, she made you soft.
Made you hesitate. Made you visible.
And now they're watching. Caleb didn't flinch. Haley spoke before he could. You think I made him weak? She said, stepping toward Lucas. No. He was already bleeding before I got here. I just made him honest about it.
Lucas Loctons, bitter. You don't get it.
The moment you walked into that meeting room, he started choosing you over the Empire. That's not love. That's suicide. Caleb pulled a gun from his back holster. Lucas didn't move. Tell me where she is, Caleb said. She's not harmed. That's my promise, Lucas said. But I won't give her back unless you walk away from her.
You want her alive?
End this. Let her go. Haley turned to Caleb, heart-shattering. This is insane, she said. You can't let him control you. I'm not, Caleb replied, voice steel. I'm choosing. And then he lowered the gun.
Lucas blinked.
Let her go, Caleb said.
You've made your point. Lucas hesitated.
Then nodded once and walked out. The moment the door closed, Haley turned on Caleb. You gave in. I bought us time. No, she said. You just proved him right. The words hung between them like glass ready to break.
It can't be your weakness, she whispered.
And I won't let my sister be the price of your war. Caleb looked at her, something fractured in his expression. So what are you saying? I'm leaving.
No.
Yes, she said, stepping back. This isn't safety. This is a cage. And I need to know who I am outside of your shadow.
You think he'll let you walk?
I don't think you can stop me. And then she walked away. For the first time since they met, Caleb Ashford didn't follow. He simply stood in the silence, watching the door close behind the woman who had become the one thing he couldn't control. 3 months passed. Chicago moved on as it always did, loud, restless, unaware. But for Haley Carter, the city had changed. The air felt different.
The rhythm slower.
As if she were living in a quieter, parallel version of her former life. She had left the Ashford estate without looking back. No messages. No visits. No favors. She changed her number. Moved into a small apartment above a second-hand bookstore in Wicker Park. Found a part-time job at a non-profit that provided after-school tutoring for kids from struggling neighborhoods. It didn't pay much. The hours were long. But there was peace. Jade came home safely the day after the confrontation, dazed but unharmed. Lucas had kept his word. He disappeared after that, name erased from the Ashford network like he'd never existed.
No traces, no retaliation, no funeral.
Haley didn't ask how Caleb had handled it. She didn't want to know. She told Jade everything. Every truth. Every lie. Every moment she had spent in that house, in his presence, under his protection. Her sister had listened quietly, then hugged her without judgment. You did what you thought was right, Jade had said. That's all any of us ever do. Still, Haley felt the weight of something unfinished. Not regret. Not guilt. Just absence. It came to her at night sometimes, when she walked home from work past the quiet storefronts and the soft yellow light spilling onto the sidewalks. In the way her hand still reached for coffee black and unsweetened. In the silent ache when she passed newsstands carrying headlines about the Ashford Foundation's new development projects, or when she heard his name whispered in the background of conversations on the train. He was still there. Not gone.
Just out of reach.
And she had chosen that. For herself. For Jade. For the woman she was still trying to become. Until the day he walked into the bookstore. It was early evening, just before closing. Haley was behind the counter, cataloging new donations, her fingers dusty from the edges of forgotten paperbacks.
The bell over the door she made. She glanced up out of habit.
And there he was.
Caleb Ashford.
No guards. No suit. Just jeans, a dark jacket, and the same storm in his eyes. She froze. He didn't move closer. Just stood at the threshold, as if uncertain whether he was allowed to step into this version of her world. I'm not here to pull you back, he said finally. I just needed to see you. Her voice was calm. You shouldn't be here. I know. Silence filled the space between them like fog. Thick, heavy with everything unspoken. I walked away, she said. You let me. I had to, Caleb replied. If I hadn't, everything you feared about me would have been true.
Elle closed the ledger slowly.
So why now? Because I changed something, he said.
Not the whole world. Not everything he built.
But the part that matters. She raised an eyebrow. What part is that? Me. His answer surprised her. I stepped down, he said. I turned over most of the operations to people who've been waiting years to take control.
The dangerous ones. The ambitious ones.
I gave them what they wanted. And I walked away. Why? She asked, voice barely a whisper. Because I finally understood what power costs, he said. And I couldn't ask you to carry that with me. Haley searched his face, looking for deception. There was none. You don't belong to that world anymore, he continued. And maybe I never really did. I just didn't know there was another choice. She crossed her arms, heart pounding. And now? Now I want to know who I am outside of it, he said. Outside of the estate.
Outside of revenge. Outside of fear.
He stepped forward, slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. But I don't want to figure it out alone, he said. Not if there's still a part of you that believes I can be more than what I was. Haley stared at him, her breath tight in her chest. You hurt people, she said. I know.
You scared me.
I hated that most of all.
You resté dangereux.
Only if I go back, he said. And I'm not going back. She looked down at her hands, then up at his. Do you know what I want? She asked.
No.
I want to be seen, she said. Not owned.
Not protected.
Not turned into a symbol of guilt or redemption. Just seen. Caleb nodded. Then I'll start there, he said. Seeing you. Not claiming you.
Not rescuing you.
Just choosing you. Haley stepped around the counter. He didn't move. She stopped in front of him. And if I choose you back, she said slowly, it won't be because I need you. It'll be because I want to build something real.
With no walls.
No threats. No fear. I wouldn't want it any other way. They stood there for a long moment. Then she reached out, took his hand. It was warm.
Familiar.
Human. 3 months ago, she had walked away from the house of power. Now, she was choosing a life of her own making. One where love wasn't control. Where protection wasn't possession. Where power wasn't violence. Just the strength to be soft, to be honest, to be free. Later, they sat on the rooftop of her apartment, looking out over the city that had once swallowed them whole. He turned to her, voice low. You know, he said, I used to think the only way to survive this city was to rule it. And now? She asked. Now I think maybe the only way to survive is to stop trying to own everything and just learn how to belong. Haley smiled faintly. You'll have to earn that. I plan to. She leaned her head against his shoulder, eyes closed, the city humming below them. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a ghost in someone else's house. She felt real. Chosen. Seen.